I have two sterling personalities with whom I've been tasked to kind of talk to. I hope I can live up to your expectations and the expectations of the organizers here. We are going to try to talk about a book that Vasudhendra wrote originally in Kannada a couple of years ago and which appeared in English early this year. Uh, the moderator also already told you a little bit about the book. It's called Tejo Tungabhadra, and it's set in the medieval India around the time of the Vijayanagara Empire. And very interestingly, it's set in India, of course. Vijayanagara Empire was in India, but it's also, a lot of it is in Portugal, right? And many reviewers and others have praised the book, in an unparalleled fashion. One particular website called it one of the 10 best Indian books to be published this year, right? Another sub-website called it book of work of great depth and breadth, right? Another website actually I thought kind of hit the nail on the head when it said it talks a lot about medieval India and it also talks about medieval Portugal, right? Now, India was largely a British colony, right? So there is a lot of things that we read about England and the UK and so on. Little bit of India was ruled by the Portuguese. We haven't read too much about it, but Tejo Tungabhadra kind of tells you a lot about the thinking in medieval Portugal, which brought them to India, which kind of made them attempt to kind of colonize India, and how it all that panned out later that you know. So I'm going to start with asking Vasudhendra about that, right? Why did you choose to write about Portugal, India, Vijayanagar? What was the motivation? What was behind that decision?
Thank you very much. Actually, the history, I feel like you can see it in two perspectives. From cinematic language, one is like a long shot, another one is close up. In the long shot, when you look at in the long shot, you will generally see only the wars, the big kings, the king who has defeated in the war, or the queens, or the romance, or the bigger things only. But if you go to the close-up, all these kings, wars, and queens, and all, they become background. And in the front, you will start seeing the common man. The common man perspective, no one looks into the history. Generally, he is totally ignored. When we talk about Vijayanagara, or when we talk about Portuguese, we only talk about Krishnadevaraya, Proudadevaraya, or their Albuquerque, Vasco da Gama, or the King Manuel. We do not know what all the challenges a common man faced. So I said, I will look history from a close-up. So I wanted to look the entire history from a common man's perspective. That's how I initiated this particular journey. Frankly, I'm a software engineer, though I'm writing from past 25 years, but I had, the history I read was only in somewhere in high school level, 8th, 9th, 10th standard. Afterwards, I never read history. But once I decided, okay, so that's fine. So in computer field, like we read Java, we read C++, we read .NET, so many languages we read and learn and forget. History is also something like that. So let me start with nothing wrong. So I started reading the history naturally because history, Vijayanagara is very near to my native place. I come from Bellary, so Bellary district. So Hampi is very near to us. So I said, let me start from there. So when I started reading the history of the social life of Vijayanagara, what really impressed me, which was a surprise to me, is the Portuguese history. What was the common man like? What was his, he was undergoing during so many inventions. They are finding out route to India, they are finding new continents itself, like America and all. So what was the common man's lifestyle there? What was he going through? So that attracted me a lot. So then I started digging into those literature quite a lot. It's very difficult. In India, I was not getting all the information related to Portuguese, but in the Portugal language, so they have written a lot of PhD thesis on their social life at the medieval times. It's a late 15th century and early 16th century is the period I have taken. So that books I got it from US, and the good thing about modern days is you can get any book, okay? You can just tell your friends in US or in UK, so they will send you the books, or order on online. So then I got it, then I went into that journey. So that's how this absolutely, you will not have any positive vibes about the kings, queens, or dynasty or the culture in my book. I have almost made it in a negative shade only. The Krishna Devaraya, you don't see him in a positive shade in my novel at all. So he will be in a negative shade only. Or the King Manuel, or Vasco da Gama, or Albuquerque, Adil Shah. None of them will have any positive shades or any glorious things. Like what you have common, like Ponniyin Selvan or Krishna Devaraya film itself in Canada. So they glorify the culture, they glorify the king. Nothing of that sort. The glorification is about the common man and his day-to-day activities, what I have focused.
Terrific. Now, so you went on this historical journey. You wrote the book in Kannada, published it to great acclaim, right? And then publisher spotted it, decided to translate it to English, and that's where your journey begins, right? His journey is over. He's done his work doing it in Kannada. So tell us a little bit about your translation journey, right? How was it translating this book?
Well, it was great fun to begin with, and I don't think his journey ended there. We worked very closely together. So I had read the book, and I thought it was very engaging, very entertaining, by the way. I mean, there's just so much information, so much research and everything, but more than everything, it's an engaging and entertaining story, and I had a great time reading it. And so, you know, as a translator, I am, first of all, a reader, and I read it very deeply, and I felt it's something that I could work with and, you know, perhaps do justice to it. So how did I get to do? Yeah, well, we have known each other for some time, and, you know, he asked me, and my mother, of course, my mother is a huge fan of Vasudhendra's, and she always wanted for me to translate one of his works, and, you know, and Tejo Tungabhadra happened to come out at a time when I had just finished writing my own novel, and I had a sort of, you know, some kind of creative exhaustion at that time, so I wasn't up to writing anything on my own. But at the same time, I wanted to be engaged with literature, and translation seemed like, I mean, I have translated earlier, but with translation, the thing is, you know, you're safe. I mean, you feel safe, because when you're writing on your own, you have to think of a plot, you have to decide what is happening to your characters and all of that. Here, all of that is done. It's taken care of. All I need to do is furnish it with new words to tell the story in a different language. So you're safe. It's like riding a cycle with trainer wheels, you know. So, and it just, for me, translation is like meditation. It's very, very engaging. I go really deeply into it. And I had a great time doing it. Yeah.
So you talked about safety, trainer wheels, and so on, right? And you were mentioning earlier, you didn't play safe at all, right? You kind of, like you said, you chose not to glorify all these big, great kings, right? And even when I was reading the novel, I found that you did talk about religious conflict and so on. So you didn't play safe. Tell me the truth. Didn't you feel scared?
Yeah, I was originally scared, but I have a stand where I try to be as neutral as possible when I'm writing fiction. Okay, so when I'm looking at it, I look at just from the common man perspective. Common man, no, like this government, that government doesn't make a difference. His day-to-day living itself is such a challenging thing, right? So even at the Krishna Devaraya period, we have the Krishna Devaraya period when we call it as the golden era. But how come the same period poet like Purandaradasa or the Kanakadasa, they started talking about poverty and fasting, means starving without any food, and so much of difficulties common man is facing. How could the poet write that one at the same period? So he says everything, ellaru maduvudu hottegage. Everyone is doing whatever the work they are doing is for their stomach. To fill their stomach is what they said. So that gave me a different idea. So always we try to read the history from only the edicts and some small details which we have. But they always glorify the kings. The Krishna Devaraya edicts, whatever is there, he will glorify himself. He will never tell anything wrong which he has done. right? But I had to read it from indirect perspective, right? So like, for example, I can see a Shasana, the edict, in which the names of the cities which has been changed by Krishna Deva Raya. Okay, the names of the places which he has changed. What was the original name? What was the changed name? I can see very easily all those are Shaiva names. Original names were all Shaiva names. And they have been changed to Vaishnava names. Completely it's been Vaishnavized. And I also checked that Tenali Ramakrishna, whose actual name is Tenali Ramalinga. And just to get appreciation from the king, he has changed his name to Tenali Ramakrishna. These things talks quite a lot of details for me. So I was going it. I was afraid. I was thinking that will there be a kind of a chaos in among the readers. I was very afraid because I'm touching every religion. Islam, I'm touching, and Hinduism I'm touching. I'm going for quite a lot on Catholics and Jews. Jew, I never seen a Jew in my life, but I written about Jew man, okay, so that all can be done easily, so not a problem. That was, I was afraid. But luckily, not even a single, see, my book, novel has been appreciated by the right-wing extreme politicians also, and left-wing communist leaders also. So both of them appreciated, saying that these are very good, this is a very good book. So that gives me a kind of a courage. If you are very neutral and you talk sense, everyone appreciate you without any agenda. So the agenda-less writing it is.
Okay. Next question is to both of you, and I want you to be, very truthful about it, right? So you went on this journey together. You're a writer and translator. He's also a writer and translator. Incidentally, not too many people know Vasudhendra is also a translator. He's translated several works into Kannada from English, right? Maithreyi works from Kannada to English.
English and Telugu also.
Yeah, and Telugu as well. Vasudhendra works from Telugu and Kannada, Telugu and English to Kannada. But anyway, coming back to my question. So you started to work together as writers, as translators. What was the nature of the conflicts that you had? So remember, you're sworn to tell the truth.
We're friends. We're great friends. Okay, I'll start with that. I'll start with that.
You remain friends.
We have
after the
friends.
collaboration.
Yeah. When I started translating, I was living in Pune. This was during the pandemic and the lockdown, and he was in Bangalore, and we used to talk on the phone regularly. Every once in a while, I would have these questions. I would write them down, and everything was fine. I honestly don't think there was any conflict in that sense. But towards the end, I think towards the editing, it's because both of us were so deeply invested in it and so kind of emotional about the whole thing. And we are also both very sensitive people. So I think there were some differences in terms of terminology and stuff like that. And because he's also a translator, I think our styles are slightly different. I like to diffuse something into the new language as much as possible. If there's an equivalent, I will use it. If there isn't, I will create an equivalent rather than retain terms too much. I mean, if it has to be retained, I will. For instance, the wrestling event in it, which is very rife and which is full of these amazing terminologies, which there is no equivalent for it in English at all. The kind of wrestling, the fight to the death, and the techniques they use, him jumping on his thigh and turning around and all of that. So there's no equivalents for that in English. So what I've done there is I've retained the terms and explained that so that it's sort of smooth, because if you just leave the terms as it is and italicize them, it becomes opaque. So things like that. So that I think he would rather retain than not diffuse. I mean, that we didn't have any issues there at all. That was fine. But because
she says very defensively.
No, that instance was fine. But later, I'm not quite sure what those terms were. But we did have some kind of a tug of war. Ultimately, because we are also very sensitive people, we managed to get over it.
So who won in the tug of war, Vasudhendra?
There is no question of winning. The book should win in the market. So
The
that's
book
all
won,
the more
exactly.
important.
Yeah.
See, I'm very thankful that she has translated my book. I'm getting a lot of appreciation for the translation. Okay, she took and she translated in almost like 4 to 5 months, which is unimaginable. Actually, I would not have done it that fast. She did it so quick and a very good translation. All my non-Kannada readers are saying that it's a very good translation, so that gives me a kind of a courage. But we had some differences actually, but she didn't have the challenges which I faced in Kannada, which is very good. Some of them actually, see, for barbers in Kannada, so we use a term. I had used a term. A barber comes, his presence is there. That's all, is one sentence. Barber was sitting at one particular corner is there. And the word I have used, I suppose it is a derogatory word, and court has given a judgment saying that you are not supposed to use that word in Kannada. Okay, and after the first edition is published, suddenly that Barbers Association called me and threatened me, saying that how can you use that word? You have immediately you remove that word and change it. I said, like, already plates have become ready and I cannot change the plates. It becomes expensive. In Canada, we all worried about the cost of the book, right? We can't sell books like English. English, you can put 700, 800 rupees, people still buy. In Canada, we can't keep book prices like that. So I was very conscious. But he said, no, you have to remove it. And finally, I took the burden and changed some to some other word. For her, it's very smooth. Actually, she just called it as barber, so absolutely no problem. With that one word, she escaped from that trauma which I went through at all. So I found like English is much smoother actually for in a way. And the other challenge, which is very interesting one, because it's I would like to repeat. I had told a couple of times, but I would like to repeat. In Kannada, I had used for the Muslims as Turukaru. So Turukaru is because they come from the Turkey. So people used to call them as Turukaru, and Islam or Muslim is a very recent term. It wasn't there during those times, right? Muslim they never used to call. So, but one of the critic who read my manuscript in the beginning, before it went for the first print, he said, it's such a derogatory term we have used, please remove it. So please don't insult them, so please remove it. So I said, sir, at least I'll remove it from the narration, but when I'm writing the dialogues, those terms has to be there because the periods, the people used to call them like that, so I cannot change that. Even Purandaradasa and Kumaravasa also call them with the same name, so how can I change? Then I took that compromise. So wherever there is a narration, I put it as Muslim, and wherever there is a dialogue, so I'll put it as Turukaru. So now she translated in this, she went to the other extreme saying that no, let us have all Muslim only. She had put all the Muslim like that. Then Manu Pillai read the manuscript. He was writing the blurb. Okay. So Manu read it and it said, now how can you call Muslim? So you have to call them Turkish only. So because they have come from there, that is more respectable word. So please change it. So everything got changed. Again, the entire manuscript, the word got changed. So that kind of interesting challenges which I have seen with the translations. So there are many more stories to tell, but let us open. I keep on talking.
Right. I'd like to throw the floor open for questions from the audience.
My name is Arijit and I'm from Assam. And I'm also working on a historical fiction. But I wanted to ask you something is that when you introduce fiction characters into historical fiction, and like, you have all the real characters as well. So how much liberty do you give your fictional characters to act as they can and influence the events that have taken place in history?
Yeah, okay. See, I have a complete liberty as far as the common man is concerned. So I can introduce, but generally what I had, as far as Vijayanagara is concerned, so the edict, so Krishna Deva Rai's all the edicts which are there, they have mentioned some specific names. Okay, this person did so and so work, this person did so and so work. So I make him as a common man. For example, like there was a lady who went for sati. Sati is a very, very big topic in my novel. So going to sati. So I took the details of all that. What was she? How was she like and all. And that liberty I have, but what I'm trying to do is that common man is going to act according to the incidents which has happened during those periods. Otherwise, it won't become historical, right? So that I had. So Krishnadevaraya, they had a war with the Kalinga. The Kalinga war has to come into the picture. Krishnadevaraya did not had a son for a long time, so I want to have that particular thing. So there, wherever you have gone, Portuguese have visited the Africa. So African lands, right? They have put a big stone, a pillar, giving the details of what is the year in which they have put that particular stone and why they have put it. So those stones are there. For me, that stone is not important. The person who would have made that stone, means that pillar, the artist who would have made the pillar, that is my character. So I'll get into those characters. So I am least bothered about all these Albuquerque, Vasco da Gama and all. I just keep him in the background and go into this common man and try to understand. So that liberty I had.
And how do you manage to make your book sound less like a theoretical history book? And because you'll be adding a lot of historical elements.
Have you read the book?
No, I think you should read
Have you read the book?
I have not.
I'm not trying to disparage you in any way. I'm saying read the book and you'll understand how he actually does it. Reading the book will perhaps answer that question,
Right.
much better than he does.
Thank you.
So
Thank you so much.
hardly any that historical characters will
The
come
gentleman
into
here,
the novel
sir?
actually. So it's only the common man.
No, people at the back have to hear your question.
Yeah.
Okay, I am Manjunath. I am just reminding you about the criticism in Varta Bharati. So please use this occasion.
Okay. See, there was some, maybe it's not the right time, but I will just touch
Maybe you
it
can
upon
do it
that.
quickly and then we can go to another
so
question.
there were some allegations saying that you had taken historical information from some of the history authors which have been written, right? So one is, the main is Salatore and another one is, I forgot. So it's from English authors. So both of them. So I have to depend on the historical details only from the historical books. I cannot create on my own. I cannot create my own. So that cannot be, nobody can claim ownership on historical events which have happened, right? So that I had to take it from the history. So I'm absolutely, because they also like, the person who wrote Blurb is one of the historian from the British, so he's a British historian. He has highly appreciated the book, okay? So he has liked the book. So I don't think that's a valid even observation as far as I am concerned. So I kept quiet. You need not have to answer that is what I felt.
Sir, good afternoon, sir. I'm from Kerala, Malayali, but I read your book original in Kannada.
Okay,
I'm
that's
greatly
great.
impressed with it. And my question is simple. Is there any probability for a sequel?
Sequel. As of now, no, I'm not planning. See, this has become so successful. This novel has already seen 12 editions. Now, 12th edition, I have given it for printing yesterday. So, during the COVID period, that too, I published in 2019 January, 2020 January. So, within these 2 years, it's seen 12 reprints, which is very rare for a book of 460 pages, right? So, everyone is asking me, what is going to be the sequel? No, I think I have already spoken whatever I wanted to tell. As far as that period is concerned, I will definitely go for some other period in the history or the contemporary, but not to do with the Vijayanagara.
Second question,
no.
sir.
Yeah.
Is, actually the novel you mentioned about Vasco da Gama coming to Kerala. And that conflict. And also there is a character who gives, the Vasco da Gama takes from Kerala and who narrates the story.
Dalit,
Yeah, actually that kind of story, is really, I think there will be a very good interest for the Malayali readers.
Yeah.
Is there any translation
In
planned?
the Malayalam.
Into Malayalam?
Yeah, let us see. Hope it becomes a hit in English. See.
No, I don't know. Without your permission, I have started, but I don't think
So English has become a bridge for connecting all our vernacular language, unfortunately. So only a book in Kannada becomes a hit in English, only then the Telugu people, Tamil people, and Malayalam people start looking at that book. Otherwise, generally, they will not, right? So unless like it has become like so important, like it has to come in the English, let us hope
So shall I
come.
contact you?
Yeah?
Shall I contact you?
Sure,
You
sure.
should,
Please,
and
please,
when he does that sequel, not if he does, right? He should credit you.
Yeah.
You have
No,
put an idea into
Not for the
his mind.
sequel, for the translation. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to end with a small plug for the book. The book starts with a murder on the very first page, right? And that's how excitingly it starts. And it's for something we take for granted, spices, right? The murder is over spices. Then there's a wrestling match to the death, right? And there are lots and lots of other dramatic moments in the book and an excellent historical perspective and detail, right? The book is available here. Please do buy the book. It's, if you can read Kannada, please read it in Kannada. If you can read it in English, please do. Maithreyi has done a great job of translating it. I hope all of you read it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks,
Vasudhendra.
Maithreyi.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Maithreyi.